On April 16, 1933, three hurried travelers arrived in the small town of Zhengding. The monks at Liang Temple, who provided the travelers with lodging, noticed that unlike typical tourists, they left early and returned late every day, seemingly on a mysterious mission. This curious group comprised the young architect Liang Sicheng and two assistants. At that time, China was in turmoil. Perhaps out of a sense of urgency, Liang sought to gather as much first-hand information as possible before the situation worsened. He joined the Institute for Research in Chinese Architecture, founded by Zhu Qiqian earlier that year, and began field research in preparation for writing a history of Chinese architecture. After 7 days, Liang Sicheng reluctantly left Zhengding. He recounted, besides Liang Temple and 4 pagodas, there were also 2 significant discoveries, Yanghe Tower and the county's Confucian Temple. In total, we photographed or measured 18 buildings, conducted detailed measurements on 6, and took rough measurements on 5 others, with the rest only photographed. He did not yet realize that his findings would refute claims made by his Japanese peers. Among the ancient structures that Liang Sicheng measured was Kaiyuan Temple. Unlike the temple seen today, Kaiyuan Temple, which was originally built in the Eastern Wei period, has its main hall at the rear, with a bell tower and the Shumi Pagoda to its left and right, respectively. According to records, this layout was devised in 898 during the Tang dynasty. Among China's existing temples, the layout of Kaiyuan Temple is highly unique. It showcases the transition in the design of Chinese Buddhist temple architecture from tower-centric to hall-centric. The bell tower at Kaiyuan Temple was an unexpected discovery for Liang Sicheng when he made his trip to Zhengding. He remarked, "If one were to call the grand brackets inside the upper and lower levels Tang style, I could not deny it." China's unique ancient architecture is characterized by primarily wooden structures combined with earth, wood, and brick. The essence of wooden structures is in the brackets. Brackets are placed layer by layer, transferring the weight of the roof to columns. The Tang dynasty, more than 1,000 years ago, represents the peak in bracket craftsmanship. Liang Sicheng believed that the large brackets inside Kaiyuan Temple's bell tower, with its gently sloping roof and deep overhangs, exemplified Tang style. Tang architecture was what Liang and his colleagues at the Institute for Research in Chinese Architecture had been seeking. Japanese architect Ito Chuda had earlier asserted that China had no surviving Tang wooden buildings, and that one needed to visit Kyoto and Nara in Japan to appreciate the majesty of Tang wooden architecture. Such statements provoked Chinese architects who were convinced that the vast expanse of China must still harbor intact Tang wooden buildings. They were not disappointed. It was later confirmed that the main structure of the bell tower at Kaiyuan Temple did feature Tang elements. As the remaining lower-level column bases, brackets, and crescent beams were all original Tang artifacts, the bell tower was classified as half a Tang structure. China's oldest surviving wooden structures were all built during the Tang dynasty. Besides this half structure at Kaiyuan Temple, another 3 are in northwestern Shaanxi province. In 1989, work crews in Hebei Province began to restore the brackets, main beams, and tiled roof in the upper eaves, reviving the bell tower's Tang style. As a birthplace of the Chinese nation, from when ancient residents of Sichuan built semi-subterranean dwellings in the heart of the Taihang Mountains, Hebei's diverse geography has served as a stage for people to create living environments. Architecture and space have danced together, illuminated by wisdom and art, to leave behind beautiful residences from various eras throughout human history. Hebei has 291 heritage sites under state protection. This includes wooden structures stretching from the Tang to the Qing dynasties. Whether from the Tang and Song dynasties, Jin and Yuan dynasties, or Ming and Qing dynasties, these buildings have stood tall, not only witnessing the changes of the times, but also carrying within them insights into China's grace and history. Liang Temple in Zhengding County, where Liang Sicheng once stayed, is a relic of the Song dynasty. First built in 586 in the Sui dynasty, it underwent a large-scale expansion during the Kaibao era of the Northern Song dynasty. It retains 4 Song wooden structures: the Hall of Gems, the Heavenly King Hall, the Hall of the Revolving Bookcase, and the Pavilion of Methriya. These structures provide a glimpse into the grandeur of Song architecture. The cross-shaped porch of the Hall of Gems presents a unique aspect that contributes to its designation as a world architectural rarity. China, renowned for its complex roof structures, has 2 representative ancient buildings: the corner towers of the Forbidden City and this Hall of Gems. The Hall of Gems has a double-eave, hip-and gable roof. Extending beyond the rectangular floor plan, the hall has hip and gable porches facing north, south, east, and west. The roof is composed of 33 ridges. Its elegant and graceful overhanging eaves, along with its prominent upturned corners, create a bold and unrestrained appearance. Under the roof of the Hall of Gems, the world within forms an integral whole. Inside are solemn statues and splendid murals. The reversed Guanyin, the Bodhisattva referred to as the Oriental goddess of beauty, emanates a sense of grace, serenity, and compassion. The individual buildings in Liang Temple are as elegant as song poetry. Its layout runs symmetrically on a north-south central axis, with the main buildings in a fluctuating pattern like that of a melodic composition. Looking at the temple, one sees the rhythm of an era, solemnity within rigor, dynamism within order. Inside are some of China's most precious relics, including the oldest revolving bookcase, the tallest and oldest thousand-hand and thousand-eye Guanyin, and exquisite bronze castings of the Vairocana Buddha. A pagoda serves as a vessel of faith, its height an external expression of reverence, its form an embodiment of praise, and its decor a reflection of the builder's sacred heart. Some are nestled amid mountains, some are adorned by a clear breeze and moonlight, some are secluded in rural solitude, while some stand tall amid bustling communities. Hebei has more than 230 ancient pagodas, each narrating stories of its affinity with Buddhism. As Buddhism spread in China, monks aimed to build pagodas wherever they went. Buddhism flourished during the Wei, Qing, and northern and southern dynasties, with pagodas gradually dotting the entire country. In 845, Emperor Wuzong of the Tang dynasty initiated the persecution of Buddhists. However, Wang Yuan Ke, the military governor in charge of the Hebei region, was a devout Buddhist and opposed the emperor's decree. As a result, Hebei's ancient monasteries thrived. One monk named Yishuan traveled from Jiufeng Mountain in Jiangxi to Zhengding to practice and teach at Liang Temple. Yishuan practiced an extreme form of Zen Buddhism, often leading people to instant awakening. This sparked a flourishing period at Liang Temple, establishing it as a distinct lineage in Zen Buddhism. It was later renowned as the Liang School. After Yishuan passed away, his disciples built the Chengling Pagoda to enshrine the relics. During the Song and Qing dynasties, the region around Zhengding saw frequent wars, leading to the destruction of Liang Temple. Only the Chengling Pagoda survived. The pagoda we see today was rebuilt and relocated on the orders of Emperor Shizong of Qing. The influence of the Liang school extended overseas, with notable figures like Ikkyu Sojin the real-life model for Ikkyu the Wise, being a prominent Lingji school monk. Every year, followers from around the world traveled long distances to pay homage. Not far from Lingji Temple is Zhengding Temple, which houses the Lingxiao Pagoda, a structure dating to the Song and Qing dynasties. Although known as the Wooden Pagoda, its first to fourth floors are made of brick, while the upper floors are a mix of brick and wood. China's two remaining half-wooden pagodas are in Zhengding and in Zhangye, Gansu Province. The central pillar of the Lingxiao Pagoda decayed during the Northern Song dynasty, causing the structure to tilt. Many craftsmen were at a loss on how to repair it. A legendary monk named Huaibing took on the task. Huaibing, a talented engineer, had earlier devised an ingenious plan to retrieve an enormous iron ox from the depths of the Yellow River. Huaibing applied his expertise once more. After careful observation and meticulous calculation, he crafted a new pillar and transported it to the pagoda. He then dismissed everyone, entering the pagoda with only one assistant. Outside, people heard sounds of chiseling and hammering. After some time, Huaibing emerged from the pagoda, holding the decayed central pillar. He had miraculously replaced it, saving the pagoda from certain collapse. This legendary feat of engineering was made possible by the pagoda's unique design, which features an internal central pillar. This pillar, running vertically like an umbrella shaft, helps counteract external wind pressure and vibrations caused by friction and misalignment among the embracing pillars and beams, joined by mortise and tenon joints. It's the only remaining example in China. The Huata Pagoda at Guanghui Temple in Zhengding was hailed as a unique treasure by Liang Sicheng. Architecture often reflects the beauty of the human soul, embodying inner reverence in its external splendor. China saw a wave of pagoda construction between the Sui and Tang dynasties and the Song and Qing dynasties. These pagodas not only had a spiritual purpose, but also served as symbols of security and dignity. The Kaiyuan Temple Pagoda in Hebei's Dingzhou is the country's tallest extant brick and wood pagoda, and is known as the first pagoda of China. Standing over 80 meters, the structure may seem overly tall for a Buddhist pagoda. Yet from a military perspective, it makes perfect sense. Construction of the pagoda began in 1001 during the Northern Song dynasty and took more than 50 years to complete. Dingzhou was a crucial northern border town. The Kaiyuan Temple Pagoda is a pavilion-style pagoda, which typically have fewer doors or false doors on the upper levels. Yet, the top two levels of this pagoda had twice the usual number of doors, facilitating surveillance and defense. It's known as the Watchtower Pagoda. In 1004, 3 years into construction, the Northern Song and Liao dynasties signed the Treaty of Chanyuan, establishing the Baigo River as the boundary. South of the river belonged to the Song, and north of the river belonged to the Liao. The Liao dynasty built 2 pagodas in the border town of Zhuizhou to counterbalance the Kaiyuan Temple pagoda. These structures, the Zhengding Temple Pagoda and Yunju Temple Pagoda, are about 300 meters apart and are together known as the Twin Pagodas. Like the Kaiyuan Temple Pagoda, the Twin Pagodas were designed as observation and defense structures. These majestic temples and pagodas narrate tales of faith and hope amid rapidly changing times. The grand halls reflect the reverence and piety of the Liao. Wenshu Hall, inside Liuan County's Kaiyuan Temple, and the main hall of Xinqing Town's Kaiyuan Temple, together narrate the interaction between objects and minds during that era. Hebei Temple in Xiyang County, Baoding, was first built in the Northern Wei dynasty during Emperor Xuanwu's reign. It carries the story of the 5 sacred mountains. Mountains and rivers are the sources of all wealth and sustenance. The practice of worshiping mountains aims to express the people's gratitude to their ancestors. Over time, making offering to the mountains evolved into worship of the 5 sacred mountains and the imperial sacrifices to heaven and earth at Taishan Mountain. After 61 BC, emperors began offering sacrifices to the 5 sacred mountains and 4 rivers, regarded a crucial rite for the unity of the empire. Hengshan Mountain, the North Sacred Mountain, in Huanyuan County, Shaanxi Province, is well known for its hanging temple. However, initially, the North Sacred Mountain was a mountain range within Baoding's territory, the main peak of which is Damao Mountain. Hebei Temple lies at the foot of Damao Mountain. Hebei means the North Sacred Mountain. At the midway point of the Ming Dynasty, a minister proposed that the mountain in Huanyuan County should be considered the North Sacred Mountain instead. This began a dispute that lasted for over a century. Zhou Yin, the Ziyang County magistrate, raised concern about potential changes and risks to the property in Hebei Temple. He carefully documented the area and property and erected a tablet to inform future generations. The dispute over the North Sacred Mountain continued until the early Qing dynasty, when eventually Damao Mountain lost its title. The mountain in Huanyuan became the North Sacred Mountain. Dining Hall, the main building in Hebei Temple, is the largest existing wooden structure in China that can be traced to the Yuan dynasty. Its grandeur has withstood centuries of weather, as well as conflict over the North Sacred Mountain. The roof has 2 layers of eaves and 9 ridges, representing the highest level of ancient Chinese architecture, the palace roof with double eaves. Other examples of this type of roof include the Hall of Supreme Harmony in Beijing's Forbidden City and the Hall of Great Perfection in the Confucius Temple in Xiufu, Shandong Province. Roofs in Chinese architecture are like a symphony of ritual and technique. Inside the hall, the east and west walls are adorned with the Heavenly Palace, a collection of large murals generally believed to have been inspired by Taoist stories. The murals depict a grand gathering of deities of heaven and earth, the 5 sacred mountains and 4 rivers, in a dynamic style reminiscent of works by the Tang artist, Wu Daozi. A mural of a flying deity on the west wall is considered a masterpiece. This fearsome, muscular figure is the Zhuyang ghost. In Hebei, faith and creativity are combined. Ancient, ornate eaves and brackets can still be found in mountain valleys, while the sound of the bells traditionally found on the eaves lingers in the air. Fuqing Temple stands on Sangyan Mountain along the Jingxing Path. 3 70-meter-high stone bridges span the gorge leading to the temple. On the central bridge is Qiaolu Hall, a 2-story, double-eaved pavilion. It is the temple's main structure. Among the precipitous stone bridge, hull, and pillars are carved beams, bracket sets, eaves, and tiled roofs, each showcasing quality craftsmanship. They combine to create a poetic tableau. Here, skillful engineering blends with natural scenery to create unique Chinese cultural imagery. To the south, in Zhejiang County, Zhonghuang Mountain also has a Cliffside Temple. This one is supported by chains. The mountain forms part of what once the route between Yeqing, capital of the Northern Qi dynasty, and Jinyang, another major city. Emperor Gao Yang built a temple here to worship the goddess Niwa. This building complex, known as Niwa Palace, has a history of more than 1,400 years. Niwa Pavilion, the palace's main structure, was built on the side of a cliff. 9 iron chains are used to keep it in place. As the structure is known to occasionally sway, it was nicknamed the Swinging Temple. The architecture combines dynamic and static elements. Confucian temples were built in honor of the Chinese philosopher Confucius and reflect a reverence for ancient culture. With their green bricks, gray tiles, white walls, and red windows, these temples embody simplicity and tranquility, typical of the 5 dynasties period around 1,000 years ago. They preserve China's continuous cultural heritage and tell of humanity's pursuit for knowledge and morality. The vast expanse of land is crisscrossed with structures that serve as either coordinates, indicating pathways, or lines, transforming natural barriers into smooth passages. This folk song is known across the North China Plain. It connects Zhaozhou Bridge with four figures from traditional Chinese culture. In Chinese textbooks, Zhaozhou Bridge is identified as the world's oldest, largest spanning, and best preserved open spandrel stone arched bridge. The spandrel above the arch of a bridge is typically solid, yet Zhaozhou Bridge is different. Along each side of its spandrel are two holes. This design not only increases the bridge's ability to discharge floodwater, but also means it is lighter, conforming to modern structural mechanics principles and improving safety. Due to its large-span circular arch, the deck of Zhaozhou Bridge is relatively flat compared with most bridges of this kind. Its flat arch design results in a longitudinal slope close to the maximum 4% gradient of modern highways, making it suitable for traffic conditions in the north, where there are more road vehicles and fewer boats. Who designed and built this marvelous stone bridge? In an introduction to Zhaozhou Bridge, the Tang official Zhang Jiajin wrote that this was the work of Sui craftsman Li Chun. However, except for this notable mention, Li Chun does not appear in any other historical records, as if his sole contribution was to build Zhaozhou Bridge. This ancient bridge has remained intact through numerous floods, earthquakes, and conflict, fulfilling the expectations of the Song Emperor Zhezong when he named it Anji Bridge. Anji literally means safe crossing. The structure's endurance has made it a world-famous example of ancient bridge construction. A building's scientific essence lies hidden within and must be tested by time and the elements. Its artistic beauty is externalized in physical form. Like a flower, the bridge has blossomed since its completion. Shan Bridge in Xianxian County appears like a compendium of natural science. The craftsmen who built it seem to have presented everything they could imagine in their minds. "3,000 lions, 600 monkeys, 72 columns with carvings of dragons. 270 carvings of animals, plants, and figures convey the aesthetic tastes and artistic sensibilities of Ming Dynasty craftsmen." The beauty of a building comes from its design and decoration. When structures are grouped together and meld with the surroundings, they form gardens, villages, and eventually cities. Hebei boasts magnificent mountains, rivers, and lakes. Historically, it has often served as the capital or as a crucial area surrounding the capital, making it an ideal spot for landscaping and gardens. Hebei is a birthplace of the traditional Chinese garden. King Zhou of the Shang dynasty built the first garden recorded in Chinese history, here on Shaqiu Terrace, the so-called Forest of Meat and Lake of Wine. In later periods, numerous places like Jinggu Garden and ancient Lotus Pond became widely known. Garden construction in Hebei reached a peak during the Ming and Qing dynasties. The Zhengding mountain resort was built in Zhengding, which has the towering peaks typical of northern China and the watery charm typical of southern China. Covering 5.64 square kilometers, the garden is a microcosm of China's landscape. It gathers all the nation's natural beauty in one place. Many popular scenic spots are concentrated here, with a multitude of pavilions, towers, and terraces, encapsulating the splendor of ancient culture. It represents the pinnacle of ancient Chinese garden art and architectural art. Surrounding the Zhengding mountain resort are many magnificent temples. These integrate the essence of the architecture of ethnic groups, including Han, Tibetan, and Mongolian, showcasing the results of openness and inclusiveness. The splendid eastern and western royal tombs of the Qing dynasty, which housed the remains of the Qing rulers, were constructed over 2 centuries. Blending naturally into the surrounding landscape, the structures embody a sense of unity between humans and nature. The overall layout is grand in scale, while its individual buildings are solemnly majestic. Not all structures built to integrate with the natural terrain are grand. The old streets of ancient Hebei villages are alive with everyday activity. Nestled in mountain basins, these communities sit beside waterways, with scattered houses shrouded in clouds and mist. On plains and plateaus, people utilize local materials, seeking natural beauty while ensuring durability. Public facilities such as schools, theaters, and temples are neatly arranged. In ancient times, people lived in caves and open fields. Later, sages replaced these with houses, with roofs and eaves to shelter against the elements. Emerging from the forests empty-handed, humans used architecture to protect against the elements, creating warm and safe shelters. These enduring structures encapsulate history, culture, science, and art. For thousands of years, buildings have stood in silence, weathering the elements, symbolizing heritage and hope and sketching a future full of possibility.